Hey, welcome to Mama Mandala. I'm Hagar. I'm always so excited that you're here. What can I say? It's always a treat and a gift to have you around. So, thank you. Welcome. If you're new to me, I'm so glad to meet you and so glad that you're here. If we've been rolling together in several practices, welcome back. I am delighted that you're here. So, yoga is very much known as a practice and as a process that leads oneself from bondage, from limitations, from the issues of the human condition to liberation. And what liberation means in the yoga tradition is mostly being immersed in and embraced by and fully in a state that unifies oneself with the expansive nature of spirit. I nutshelled it because, it's YouTube. We're not going to get into the full depth of things right here. But to kind of give us context, originally, the word yoga first appears in the Vedas, ancient text that was orally passed down ear to ear tradition from one person to another. And in the Vedas, yoga, the word yoga shows up there with the verb root yuj, which means to yoke. So yoga is a practice and a process of connection. In some ways, to a certain degree, we can even look at that idea of freedom, of liberation as a little bit, and this is great because we don't want to free ourselves from that, pun intended. In some ways, this is a little bit of a dichotomy, right? Because if yoga is to connect, yoga is to commit to something, to yoke yourself to something, to bring yourself into relationship with something, to make an engagement of some sort. And so traditionally it was, and a couple of videos ago, I shared this invitation into an engagement in the cyclical nature of our being, in the cycles of life. And that's very much rooted in the concepts that the Vedic tradition brought. And this is the tradition. The Vedic tradition is what gave birth to yoga as we think about it today. But from then, since then, it has moved and rebirthed itself in many ways. And one thread that weaves together many of the different traditions of yoga that argue with one another and that don't agree on what yoga is and that build also one on top of the other. The thread that weaves it together is this concept of liberation. The word for liberation in Sanskrit is moksha. So moksha comes from the verb root moksh, which means to liberate. So moksha is this idea that there is something to free ourselves from. And it's a process of freeing oneself from really the problems of being human, of being a changing entity, of I'll put it in quote, even though I don't think it's fully quote necessary, but the suffering of birth, and if you want to go in the Buddhist direction of birth and sickness and old age and death, that life has embedded in it experiences of suffering. And yoga, in so many of the yoga traditions, has evolved into this solution concept that by meditating, by practicing austerities, by doing also asana, but asana is a very recent addition in the way that we practice it now, particularly in the West, very new addition to the yoga tradition. A little rhyme, why not? But those practices are meant to, in this evolving tradition, to free us from the problems of life, to connect us. Here it is that yoga, that yuj, that yoking, to connect us with, I'll just say that word because it works for the tradition, spirit. Okay, so we can also look later on, the word svatantriya in Sanskrit shows up, and svatantriya means, sva means self, and tantra, like tantriya, like tantra, means tantra got a bad rep or a sexy sort of connotation, but this is a much more ancient tradition. We'll talk about this another time. But the word means to loom, to weave together. So svatantriya is the process of self-looming, of putting ourselves together. Because what is freedom if not the process of choosing what we yoke ourselves to, what we bind ourselves to, what we bond with, what we connect with deeply and grow roots into, what matters to us. Freedom isn't the dissolution of boundaries, but freedom is this invitation to bound ourselves to what matters, to bound ourselves to the heart, to bind ourselves to who we love. And a liberating quality to it can also be sometimes helpful, because we do tend to have patterns and habits and roads that we walk down in our psyche that are not helpful for us or for others. So the practice of yoga and meditation, which are really one and the same, some people separate those two, but they're a part of this. They're the same. Yoga is meditation. Meditation is yoga. That the practices are a way for us to change the routes that we walk down commonly and often, that aren't healthy for us and for the environment and for other people and for the world, and making a change. But to make a change, to make a shift, you have to yoke to something else. So the liberation isn't without the bondage. It's just another place into which we yoke ourselves. Another place, another concept that we connect ourselves to, that because it matters. So to break patterns that aren't helpful for us, we can free ourselves from one by committing to another. So bondage and liberation don't have to be the way that the yoga tradition has been telling us, don't have to be separate from one another. They, in fact, in my opinion, humble as it is, cannot be separate. Because in order to liberate ourselves from something, we have to commit to something else. Even if you want to liberate yourself from the issues of the human condition and the suffering, that's fine, that's your thing, do your thing. But you'll have to commit to something in order to do that. So bondage and liberation, again, here is the paradox, because paradoxes are inherent in anything that has the depth of truth. And I'm nervous about saying anything because there are always exceptions. But bondage and liberation are a woven together tapestry. All right, I think you get it. Downward facing dog, let's start there. If you have a strap, go grab it. You might need it, you might not. If you don't have a strap, you can grab a scarf or even a shirt. Just have something, because we will have our hands behind our back in between our legs. And that's sometimes hard to do if you don't have the shoulder opening for that. So having a strap or something that you can use can be really helpful. Downward facing dog, we're going to press the hands deeply into the earth, because we are committing right now to the health of our wrists and our shoulders, and to grounding ourselves and rooting ourselves in what matters to us, in what we are choosing right now, today, in this period in our lives, to connect more deeply to and to enhance more and generate more of.
Connect your breath, deepen it, tone the back of the throat. And breathe slow, deep Ujjayi Pranayama. Deep inhalation through the tone in the back of the throat. And with an exhalation, bring your knees down to the floor. Now, I should have said that you can also put your hands on a wall or on a chair or in something if weight bearing isn't the right thing for you right now. Inhale, stretch your left arm to the left, and with an exhalation, thread your left arm underneath your right. Bring your left shoulder to the floor. Come up high on the fingertips of your right hand. If bringing your left shoulder to the floor is not happening for you, you can put your forearm on the floor, or you can elevate yourself and put a block or a pillow or a stack of books underneath your shoulder. And you can always pause the video and bring something if you need it. The continuity is important, but your health is more important. Oh, Gracie, she wants to bark at something. Inhale and untwist. Bring yourself back to center. Press your hands down, and with your exhalation, move your hips a little bit side to side. With an inhale, reach your right arm to the right, and with an exhalation, thread your right arm underneath your left and bring yourself into a twist. Come up high on the fingertips of your left hand. As you breathe here, draw the front of your hip bones, the ASISs, the anterior superior iliac spine, the front of your hip bones, that bony landmark in the front of your hips that you can kind of feel if you dig in there. Draw them towards one another, and also the sides of your ribs, draw towards the center so that your belly is engaged and your sacrum is stable. And then turn your chest up to the sky. Slow breath, deep breaths through the tone in the back of the throat. Inhale, untwist, bring yourself back to center and slow the breath down a lot. Move your hips a little side to side. I know you can't hear me breathe all the time because I'm talking, I'm instructing you. Inhale deeply, reach your hips back and your chest forward, and with an exhalation, toes tucked under, stretch yourself up and back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog, hands rooted deeply into the earth like you mean it. What are you yoking yourself to in your life right now? If there's something you want to liberate yourself from, inhale your right leg up, bend your right knee, open up your right hip. If there's something you want to unwind and untangle, what will you need to yoke yourself, connect yourself, and entangle yourself with? Reach your right leg back, deep breath in, root your hands into the floor, like this is your way of connecting there. Exhale, bring your right foot outside of your right hand, and with your right arm, your right elbow kind of bends into the inner right shin. With your right arm, push into the right shin, but with your right leg, your right knee, your right shin, draw into the right arm. So there's this engagement into the center, connecting yourself to what is inside of you, what is intrinsic, what is important, and breathe. And some philosophical way of thinking about it is that in many ways, liberation, freedom is thought of as inherent. It's thought of as intrinsic. It's thought of as something that is already there for you. Exhale, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. You already are free. And that's a too deep of a conversation for this moment. Inhale your left leg up, bend your knee and open up your hip. When you think of people who aren't, we can say we're all born free, but then depending on where you're born in the world, slow breath. So you can't really generalize that either. Reach your leg back, deep breath in. And with an exhalation, bring your left foot outside of your left hand. And again, with your leg and your arm, create a yoking, create a connection. Bring
the parts of you, as you do that on a physical level, as you ignite a somatic relationship with the process of yoking, you can bring into it something more, something further and deeper for you. What parts of you, as you squeeze your leg and the arm into each other, what parts of you do you need to connect more deeply to in order to create the things that you want, in order to untangle from certain things, in order to free and unlimit yourself in your mind so that you can do more of what you're here to become. With an exhalation, stretch back, downward facing dog, hands rooted, because that requires commitment, that requires an ability to grow roots. Inhale, bring your knees to the floor. Hands are still rooted because the commitment is there. See, freedom is not necessarily easy. Exhale, hips down, chest forward and up. And I say that as someone, I consider myself very much a free spirit. And yet, there are things, slow breath, that limit me. Not just in my life because of the way I chose to live it, but also there are things that limit me inside myself. Don't we all? Deep breath in. Don't we all? Exhale, stretch up and back, downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Slow breath in. With an exhalation, slowly walk your hands back towards your feet into Uttanasana, forward bend. Inhale and look forward, halfway up. Exhale, slowly fold and bow deeply back in. Bring your left hand outside of your right shin and pull on the shin so that you can twist your upper body to the right. The fingertips of your right hand are on the floor. You can also, if this is hard for you, you can bend your knees. You can put a block underneath your right hand. You can even put your hand on a wall or on a chair or on a couch. But hand outside your leg, twist your chest to the right. But like we did before in the previous twist, pull the lower belly from the right toward the left as your chest twists from the left to the right. And then untwist, inhale. That's the paradox, right? We gotta bring parts that are in opposition. Twist to the other side, exhale. And right now, I live in the US, but there's other places in the world where that's an issue too, where there's got to be a little bit of a fight for freedom, for democracy. Turn your chest to the left. Breathe slowly. And that gives us an invitation, in fact, to let that process be collective rather than only individual. Because in the yoga tradition, very easily, and we can see that in more modern yoga, inhale back to center and look forward. And with an exhalation, walk your hands forward, come back into downward facing dog. We can see how individualistic and self-centered yoga can become very easily. It can become, I'm liberating myself and that's it. That's all I have the power to do. And that is true. And yet, nothing exists without all the things that exist around it. So again, paradox. Inhale, right leg up. That's the beauty. It's always going to be more than one thing. Exhale, the foot forward in between your hands. Left heel to the floor. Right forearm to your right thigh. Stretch your left arm up and over your head. So right forearm rests on the right thigh, but it doesn't just rest because then there's a little bit of a collapse, right? Push the right forearm down so there's more of a lift in the right side of your body as you bend deep into your right knee. Press both of your feet actively into the earth. And again, that's your commitment. You're showing up, breathe, to what matters to you. Draw the front of your hip bones towards each other. See, you're freeing by engaging sides of the ribs to the center as you turn your chest up to the sky. Your heart opens up towards the sky because you're connecting more deeply. You're grounding. You're yoking. Yoke yourself to the breath. Breathe a little more deeply. Maybe, if you can, slide your right hand to the inside of your right leg. So the right fingertips are on the floor on the inside of your right foot, and the right arm and the right leg push into each other like we had in the lunge a little bit earlier. Both feet pressing to the floor as you stretch the left arm over your head. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, touch the ground and step back. Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Your hands are rooted, hips up high, stretch long and tall. Left leg up, deep breath in. Press the hands down. Ground into your breath. Exhale the foot forward. In between your hands, right heel to the floor. Left forearm to your left thigh. Right arm up and over the head and breathe. And as you breathe more deeply, you can go more deeply into that conversation with yourself. What are the things you're trying to change but you're feeling really stuck in? Breathe into them. Obviously, this is a yoga practice. You're not going to solve all the issues right now, but this is an engagement in conversation with yourself. Left forearm to left thigh, push it. Push it down so that there's a lift in the waist. And draw the front of your hip bones towards each other, the sides of the ribs towards the center. Press both of your feet down into the earth, but bend deep into your left knee as you stretch your right arm over your head. And keep breathing. Maybe, if that feels okay for your body, slide your left hand down your left leg. So the left fingertips come to the floor on the inside of your left foot. Breathe slowly. And as you continue to engage at your core, to connect to what matters to you, open the heart. And both are important. And sometimes they move in opposition, but both are important. So the paradox is there to keep us growing and to free ourselves to become more complex beings rather than simple ones. Exhale, touch the floor. A little counterculture, wouldn't you say? Downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Inhale, bring your knees to the floor. Keep your hands grounded, rooted. Exhale, keep your hands grounded as you bring your hips down, your chest forward and up. Point your feet. Spread your toes, root your toenails to the ground. Lift your chest. Maybe let your cobra move a little bit side to side, but keep the inner edges of your hands grounded. And as your cobra moves, she's able to see things from different angles, different perspectives. And so there's a deeper weaving that happens and a deeper possibility of expanding. Exhale, downward facing dog. Because if you're moving yourself side to side, you're not stuck in this perspective is the true one. Exhale and walk your hands back towards your feet, Uttanasana. This is where you might need a strap. So this, and we'll have more things that you might need a strap for, but this is one of them. Fall deeply in, and then if you can, and that feels okay for your shoulders, interlace your fingers behind your back and stretch the arms over the head. And if this is so hard, this is when you can hold the strap and stretch your arms over your head. I'm doing it funny. So let's free the strap and stretch like that. Okay? So up to you, depending on what you need. Breathe slowly. Fingertips to the floor. Inhale, look forward. And exhale, walk your hands forward. Come back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Right leg up, deep breath in. Exhale, step the foot forward. In between your hands, spin the left heel to the floor and bring both of your hands on the inside of your right leg and walk your hands away from your right foot as you root both of your feet down. Lift your hips up, and as you root your hands down and your feet down, your right knee, you might notice, it wants to come towards your right arm bone. It wants to knock in, so resist it. Widen the right knee. There is resistance that's necessary. Doing things the way we're used to sometimes is what keeps us stuck. Sometimes that's what keeps us limited. That's fine. Doesn't make you a bad person. That's totally normal. You're human. Totally normal. Press your feet down and even draw them towards each other so that you're connecting more deeply to your center, and stretch your right leg straight. Bring your right fingertips to the floor or a block outside of your right shin, and stretch your left arm. Open it up to the sky. Turn your chest to the sky, but keep your belly strong. Sides of the ribs pulling in. Lengthen the spine all the way through the crown of your head. Deep breath in. Exhale, hand down to the ground and step back. Downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. Slow breath in. Slow breath out. So we do need resistance. We need to notice where our tendencies are a certain thing, a certain way. Inhale the left leg up. And exhale the foot forward in between your hands. Right heel to the floor, hands on the inside. Walk your hands away from your left foot, but widen the left knee away from your left arm bone. So bring that little bit of resistance, going a little bit in the opposite direction of what the tendency is, so that you can liberate yourself from the tendencies that might not be good for you. The knee knocking in is not the best thing for most bodies. So widen the left knee to the left. That's going to engage your gluteus muscles. It's making your hips, your butt a little stronger. Breathe, which was going to actually make your sacrum more stable. So that's a good thing. And then press your feet down and draw them towards each other, isometrically towards the center, so that your inner thighs are strong. Stretch your left leg straight and bring your left hand outside of your left foot. Maybe you're going to put it on the block. Right arm up to the sky. And breathe. Trikonasana, triangle. Crown of the head lengthens. Sides of the hips pull to the center. Chest opens up. And one more breath. Exhale. Touch the floor and step back. Downward facing dog. I think our bodies would benefit from another cobra. So bring your knees to the floor. And with an exhalation, bring your hips. You're going to bring them forward and down to the floor, and your chest forward and up. Draw the front of your shoulders towards the back of your body and broaden through your collarbones. So you're not just cranking it back. You're drawing it back, and you're also broadening and expanding. Exhale, slowly stretch up and back, downward facing dog. And again, now you might need the strap. Lift your right leg up, inhale. And exhale your foot forward in between your hands. Spin the left heel to the floor, right hand on the inside of your right leg. Okay, so if you need the strap, you can try it without. We're gonna dig the right arm underneath the right leg. So you can hold your right calf with your right hand and push it forward. Move your hips a little bit side to side so that more of your shoulder can come underneath the right leg. And then reach with your left hand and interlace your fingers outside of your right hip. And if you're thinking to yourself, lady, you are crazy, you're out of your mind, I don't think so, you're gonna grab the strap and you can bring it from above. So the left hand holds it and sends it down towards the right hand, okay? And then we're gonna bring the right shoulder now a little bit more in front of the right knee and turn the chest up to the sky. So this is bound side angle pose. Slow breath. Because we are binding ourselves. We're bonded with, we're bound to the things that matter to us. Inhale. Come out of the situation and step back into downward facing dog. And in order to free ourselves from the things that limit us, that aren't healthy for us and others, we're going to need to make different choices. So what are you binding yourself to? Left leg up, deep breath.
Exhale the foot forward in between your hands. Right heel down to the floor, hands on the inside of your left leg. Breathe. Press your feet down. Bring your left hand to the inside of your leg so you can bring the hand to the calf muscle and push it forward. Move the hips. The movement of the hips a little bit helps the flexibility, right? Moving around helps our mobility, help us not get stuck, particularly when we're gonna go bind ourselves. So now the shoulder, the right shoulder is underneath the right, is inside of the right leg, hopefully. Bring your left hand to the outside of your left hip and the right hand to hook on the outside of the hip, or hold the strap, and with a strap you can do this. Go ahead and bring your left shoulder in front of your left knee and breathe, which I forgot to do, and turn your chest up to the sky. Slow breath. Press your feet down as you turn your chest up to the sky, and as you turn your chest up to the sky, draw the ribs toward each other, the sides of the ribs, the ASISs, front of the hip bones. Inhale, slowly come out and step back. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. And sometimes we are going to be in a little bit of a tangle. Bring your knees to the floor. Inhale. Exhale, hips down, chest forward and up. Broaden through your collarbone as a way to broaden your heart, open your heart, broaden your mind from different angles. Do you notice how when you broaden through the clavicles, your collarbones, you're not just cranking your heart forward. There's an opening in the all around the heart, the front, the back, the sides. Exhale into child's pose. Big toes touch, knees wide apart. Forearms to the earth, forehead to the ground. You worked very hard right now. I can feel it because I can say I did, for sure. Lie on your back and bend your knees. Place your feet on your mat as wide as your outer hips. We're gonna do one bridge pose. Bridge is another thing. It, in a way, frees us to move from one place to another, which we wouldn't and couldn't if it wasn't for the bridge. Bend the elbows, fingertips up to the sky. Press the back of the head into the floor. Draw the front of the shoulders towards the back so they anchor the top part of the shoulders, ground to the floor, and the chest lifts up. And then inhale and lift your chest up and walk your shoulders a little closer in. So your shoulder blades go a little closer in. If this is cool for you and good for you, interlace your fingers, but put the opposite index finger on top than the one you're used to. Because we did one of those earlier, and we did it with, I bet you did it with the one you're used to. Maybe shoulders a little closer towards one another, back of the head on the floor, and lift up. If interlacing is not a good option for you, this is where the strap again gets very handy, because you're going to separate your hands and hold the strap between the hands. Lift your hips up. Lift the chest up. Back of the head into the floor. Deep breath in. Exhale, lower down. And a bridge as it frees you to move from a place you are in to another place that you wouldn't have been able to without the bridge. Relax your body for a moment. It's also a binding, because it binds you to another place. It yokes one side to the other. It brings parts together, which is both an expansion, right? Because you're no longer just an individual. You're no longer just displaced. And it's, in other ways, binding, because you're no longer just you. It's no longer just that. There's a connector. Bring your knees into your chest.
And then take your knees to the right and open the left arm to the left. I know I'm kind of drilling it in because I've learned a lot of this from Douglas Brooks, who is an incredible scholar. I highly recommend studying with him. But I think it's worth staring inside of us because it's a different way of looking at and thinking about concepts that we so that we use sometimes or think of sometimes without deepening into. And if there's something that I yoke myself to is the possibilities of going deeper. Of not staying on the surface. I'm interested in moving us in different directions as we think of things and feel into them. Breathe. Inhale your knees back to center. Keep breathing deep, slow breaths through the tone of the back of the throat. Exhale your knees to the left. Open the right arm to the right, ground the right shoulder into the ground, into the earth, so that your chest can open to the right. Moksha, that Sanskrit word for liberation, implies a release from a certain net that we feel caught in. And so, yes, originally, if we're talking about the yoga tradition, it's all the suffering of death and birth and life and sickness and all the struggles. It's freeing us because it takes us to the expansive state of being immersed in spirit. There's different words for it in the yoga tradition. Inhale, your knees back to center. Give yourself a nice big hug. But it's also a release. Hug the knees into your chest and allow your spine to be massaged by the ground as you gently move side to side. But it can also be, and yes, it's a more modern interpretation. It can also be, and that's okay. We are part of what moves the conversation of yoga, the argument of yoga, the tradition of yoga further and forward and onward. And we can argue of whether or not that's right to do if we are not from India. It's okay. We can have conversations about it. We can explore the question, maybe liberate ourselves a little bit from the answer. But release ourselves in that different other way of interpreting from the things that limit us and keep us stuck and keep us from being greater versions of ourselves. And yoga can become that personal practice that allows us to undo and untangle and unwind the places where perhaps the conversations in society, perhaps the conversations we have inherited from our family are not serving us and also not serving others. Relax your body now into Shavasana and let yourself release. And we know that that's not going to happen in one practice, in one Shavasana, in one day. This is a process. Maybe an exhalation through your mouth helps. But in this pose, the pose of the corpse, the pose of death, you get to release and rebind yourself to the soil beneath you by allowing certain matters, certain conversations, certain ideas to begin to break down in this composting process of shavasana, of a corpse. And that breaking down happens through a reintegration into other things, like the worm that eats the flesh, like the bird that eats the worm, like the bacteria and the mycelium that break things down so that the tree can be nourished. Allow your system to be reintegrated, regenerated in this release. And please, dear ones, stay here for as long as you need to. The snoring sounds of Gracie, my dog, will disappear as I turn this off. But if you can stay for longer, that would be amazing. And I will see you soon. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this channel and put a like on this video if it was interesting for you. And subscribe to our mailing list over on mamamandala.com, as well as to our Substack. I will, when I say our, I mean mine. I will leave all the links for you in the description of the video. And I'll catch you later. Thank you so, so much.